Pro-Palestine protesters storm Horse Guards. Horse Guards, Royal Guard, King's Guard, Horse, London. Tourists moved slowly along the wide pavements, cameras in hand, eager to capture every detail of the famous landmarks. Among them were the historic Horse Guards parade grounds, one of London's most iconic sights, where the Royal Guards and their magnificent horses performed their ceremonial duties. The air was crisp, carrying the faint sound of carriages and the soft clatter of hooves on stone. Everything seemed peaceful, almost ordinary, as people laughed, chatted, and strolled along, completely unaware of what was about to unfold. Nearby, in the streets bordering the parade grounds, a crowd began to gather. They were supporters of Palestine, drawn together by a shared sense of purpose and a desire to raise awareness about issues they deeply cared about. Though their numbers were not overwhelming, the energy in the group was noticeable. People waved colorful flags, held up banners with messages calling for justice, and chanted in a rhythm that echoed off the nearby historic buildings. Some of the supporters were experienced in organizing peaceful gatherings, while others were newcomers, curious or motivated by recent events in the news. There was a mix of ages, backgrounds, and nationalities, but a common feeling united them all, a wish to be heard, to make their voices visible in the heart of London. The Royal Guards, dressed in their iconic red uniforms and towering bearskin hats, stood perfectly still on the parade grounds. They were a familiar sight, a symbol of British history and tradition. Their expressions were unreadable, their posture impeccable, a silent testament to years of training and discipline. Each guard seemed almost statuesque, unmoving even as people passed close by, taking photographs or waving excitedly. Mounted guards, sitting tall atop their elegant horses, surveyed the grounds with calm precision. The horses, trained to remain steady despite noise or movement, flicked their tails and shifted slightly, their powerful muscles coiled beneath shiny coats. To the casual observer, it was just another day in London, a scene that blended history, beauty, and ceremony. But the crowd on the street was growing. What had started as a few dozen people soon became more noticeable as word spread and more supporters arrived. Their chants grew louder, a steady rhythm of voices calling for attention. Some held signs with words like peace and justice in large, bold letters, while others carried small banners with messages supporting human rights. Children stood alongside their parents, curious and wide-eyed, some waving small flags they had brought with them. Among the protesters, some carried cameras or phones, recording the moment and sharing it on social media, hoping to extend the reach of their message far beyond the streets of London. The atmosphere in the area began to shift. Tourists paused mid-step, turning their heads to see what was happening. Some smiled at the colorful banners, intrigued by the display, while others looked on with curiosity, wondering why so many people had gathered in what was usually a quiet, orderly area. The tension was not aggressive. It was more like a charged hum, a sense that something important was happening. Passers-by felt a mix of curiosity and surprise, as if the ordinary morning had been gently interrupted by a wave of energy and purpose. Among the Royal Guards, there was no immediate reaction. They stood their ground, holding their ceremonial posture, even as the chanting became louder and the crowd approached the edges of the parade grounds. The mounted guards' horses shifted slightly, but remained remarkably calm. Years of careful training had prepared them for all kinds of distractions, from loud noises to unexpected crowds. Their hooves struck the stone in measured, steady steps, adding a subtle rhythm that contrasted with the protesters' chants. The guards' faces remained unreadable, but behind their disciplined exterior was a constant awareness, a readiness to respond if needed, though their primary task was simply to maintain the ceremony and the dignity of the site. As the crowd moved closer, some supporters called out to passers-by, explaining the purpose of their gathering and sharing information about why they were there. They spoke passionately, sometimes pointing to specific incidents in the news or recounting stories of people affected by conflict. Many tourists stopped to listen, genuinely interested, some nodding in understanding or sympathy. Others took photos of the protesters holding flags, capturing the moment for their own memories or to share later with friends. Even in the midst of the growing crowd, there was an undeniable sense of order. People were careful not to block the streets entirely, making room for pedestrians and traffic, showing that they wanted their voices heard respectfully. At the same time, local police officers stood at strategic points, observing the scene with quiet vigilance. Their presence was noticeable but not imposing. They wore neutral expressions, ensuring that everyone could express their opinions safely while remaining prepared to step in if the situation escalated. Officers communicated with each other using discreet gestures, their training evident in the calm, measured way they monitored the crowd. The balance was delicate. Too much intervention could provoke tension, while too little could allow confusion to spread. For now, everything remained under control, a testament to careful planning and professionalism. Children in the crowd watched the royal guards with fascination. Some pointed excitedly at the tall, red-coated figures, whispering to their parents about how amazing the horses looked and how still the guards could stand. Parents smiled, taking pictures and explaining a little about the history of the parade grounds and the guards' ceremonial duties. In many ways, the morning felt like a living lesson in tradition, history, and civic engagement, all unfolding simultaneously. The contrast between the ceremonial calm of the parade grounds and the lively energy of the protesters created a unique scene, one that was both visually striking and emotionally engaging. Some of the protesters moved closer to the entrance of the Horse Guards parade, stopping just short of the barriers that separated the ceremonial grounds from the street. Their voices grew in unison, a rhythmic chant that carried over the cobblestones. Even in their passionate display, there was a sense of discipline. Leaders in the group encouraged everyone to stay safe, to remain on the street, and to respect the historic site. It was clear that the intent was to be seen and heard, not to cause harm or disruption. Photographers and journalists began to arrive, sensing a story worth capturing. Cameras clicked and microphones were held aloft as reporters interviewed some of the supporters, giving them a platform to share their perspectives. As the morning unfolded, an unusual energy hung in the air. The combination of history, ceremony, and public demonstration created a scene unlike any typical day in London. Tourists marveled at the contrast, some stopping to ask questions, others simply observing quietly. The royal guards remained statuesque, a steady presence in the middle of the unusual activity, while the horses shifted occasionally, their alert eyes taking in the scene. There was a sense that history itself was quietly observing, that the centuries-old parade grounds had witnessed countless moments, yet each day brought something new and unique. By mid-morning, the crowd had settled into a rhythm. The protesters' chants became more melodic, almost like a song that filled the streets. Passers-by either joined in briefly, nodded in agreement, or watched silently, capturing the moment in memory or on devices. The royal guards continued their ceremonial duties, and the mounted guards carefully maneuvered their horses, each step precise and deliberate. Even with the energy of the crowd, there was no chaos, only the careful balance between expression, order, and tradition. The morning at Horse Guards Parade was no longer ordinary. It had transformed into a moment where history, civic engagement, and personal conviction intersected. People who had arrived for a casual stroll now found themselves witnesses to something larger than themselves, a story unfolding in real time. In those first few hours, before any dramatic events or confrontations, the scene was already compelling. A peaceful, determined group of people standing for their cause, juxtaposed against centuries of tradition and ceremonial discipline. And so the day began, with a calm morning turning into a scene filled with energy, purpose, and quiet anticipation. The royal guards remained statuesque, the horses alert but steady, and the crowd growing louder yet respectful. This was the start of a story that would soon capture the attention of the city, leaving everyone who witnessed it with a memory of an unusual, thought-provoking, and unforgettable morning in London. As the morning unfolded, the crowd on the streets outside Horse Guards Parade began to grow. What had started as a few dozen supporters had now become a significant gathering. People came from different parts of the city, carrying flags, banners, and placards with messages of peace and justice. There was a sense of unity among the protesters, as if they all shared a silent understanding. They were here to be seen, to make their voices count, and to remind the world that their cause mattered. The air was filled with a mix of excitement, determination, and anticipation, like the quiet tension before a great event begins. Tourists and locals alike paused to observe the scene. Cameras flashed, smartphones recorded the chanting, and children whispered to their parents, pointing at the colorful flags waving in the breeze. Some visitors were curious, wanting to understand what the gathering was about, while others were simply fascinated by the unusual energy of the crowd. The banners, written in bright colors and clear letters, caught the eye. Words like peace, unity, and justice for all stood out, offering a hopeful message amid the bustling city streets. Even in their fervor, the crowd maintained a sense of calm. People were careful not to block the pavements, allowing pedestrians and vehicles to move safely, showing respect for both the city and its historic sites. The royal guards remained perfectly still on the parade grounds. Dressed in their famous red uniforms and tall bearskin hats, they were a symbol of discipline and tradition. Each guard's posture was immaculate, and their faces betrayed no emotion, even as the sounds of chanting reached them. Mounted guards on their elegant horses moved slightly in response to the commotion, their steady steps demonstrating years of careful training. The horses, alert and attentive, shifted their hooves but remained remarkably calm, showing no signs of distress. For the guards, this was another day of upholding centuries-old ceremonial duties, maintaining the dignity of the parade grounds no matter the distractions surrounding them. The energy of the crowd was growing. Chants became louder and more rhythmic, echoing through the streets and bouncing off the surrounding historic buildings. Some supporters formed small groups, linking arms and singing songs together. Others held megaphones, speaking passionately about why they were there and sharing stories from their own experiences or from communities affected by conflict. Their words were heartfelt and sincere, delivered with the hope that anyone listening would understand and empathize with their message. Passers-by stopped to listen, nodding thoughtfully, while others captured videos to share on social media, extending the reach of the demonstration far beyond the streets of London. Among the crowd, there was a remarkable diversity. Young students walked alongside older citizens, families with children held small flags, and volunteers moved quietly, handing out water and informational leaflets. Some people carried cameras and notebooks, documenting the moment, while others simply observed, absorbing the atmosphere and the passion of the participants. Everyone, despite their differences, seemed united by a shared commitment. They were there to make their voices heard in a peaceful and respectful way. Even the smallest gestures, a smile, a nod, or a wave, contributed to the sense of community that had formed in the streets that morning. As the protesters drew closer to the entrance of the parade grounds, the energy became more palpable. People stepped carefully around the barriers, respecting the boundaries while still making their presence known. The chants grew louder, rhythmic, and musical, almost like a heartbeat that pulsed through the streets. Some supporters held up their banners higher, ensuring they were visible from a distance, while others spoke directly to bystanders, explaining the purpose of the gathering and encouraging understanding and empathy. There was no anger in their voices, only passion and a desire to be acknowledged. Police officers maintained a quiet but vigilant presence, observing the crowd with careful attention. Their goal was clear: to ensure that everyone could express themselves safely while preventing any unintended accidents. They communicated silently with each other, using gestures and subtle movements to coordinate their positions. Despite the size of the crowd, the situation remained orderly, a testament to careful planning and mutual respect between authorities and protesters. The officers' calm demeanor reassured both the crowd and the onlookers, showing that the gathering could continue peacefully without escalating into chaos. Children in the crowd added a unique dimension to the scene. Some pointed excitedly at the royal guards and their majestic horses, whispering questions to their parents about what made them so still and imposing. Others waved small flags enthusiastically, joining in the chants with innocent determination. Parents smiled, explaining a little about the history of the parade grounds and the ceremonial duties of the guards. For the children, this was not just a protest. It was a lesson in civic engagement, history, and the power of peaceful expression. Many families took photographs together, capturing a memory of a day that combined tradition with the energy of a passionate community. Journalists and photographers arrived in increasing numbers, sensing a story worth telling. Cameras clicked, and microphones were held high as reporters approached participants to ask about their reasons for attending. Interviews were conducted politely, with volunteers taking turns to explain their motivations and hopes. The crowd remained cooperative and organized, aware that media attention could amplify their message far beyond the streets of London. Some protesters waved at cameras, smiling and gesturing, while others continued their chants, letting the words and energy of their group speak for themselves. Despite the growing size of the crowd, there was a remarkable sense of calm and order. People were mindful of the historic significance of the parade grounds, and leaders within the group encouraged everyone to maintain respect for the site. Volunteers moved quietly through the crowd, reminding participants to stay on the streets and away from barriers. Their focus was not on confrontation, but on visibility, understanding that being seen and heard could be powerful even without entering the ceremonial grounds. The respect shown by the crowd contributed to the overall peaceful atmosphere, making the gathering a positive example of civic engagement. As the morning turned toward late morning, the crowd had formed a cohesive presence. Chants and songs echoed in unison, creating a powerful, collective energy that could be felt by anyone nearby. The royal guards continued their duties, maintaining an unwavering composure as their eyes scanned the scene. Horses shifted occasionally, alert but calm, their powerful presence adding a sense of dignity to the unfolding events. The contrast between the peaceful, disciplined guards and the lively, passionate crowd created a visually striking and emotionally compelling scene, one that captured the attention of everyone in the area. Some protesters began to organize themselves into small circles, discussing strategies to ensure their message remained visible and respectful. Volunteers moved efficiently, distributing water and guiding people toward safe areas to stand or watch. Others documented the gathering through photography and videos, ensuring that the moment was preserved for both news coverage and personal reflection. Despite the growing excitement and energy, there was no sense of disorder. The group understood that their effectiveness depended on remaining respectful, organized, and focused on their purpose. Meanwhile, the royal guards maintained their ceremonial roles with extraordinary discipline. Every movement, every gesture was precise and controlled. The mounted guards shifted slightly as the crowd's energy approached, but the horses responded calmly to their riders' commands. The sight of the guards, immovable and composed, provided a striking contrast to the moving, chanting crowd. It reminded everyone present that history, tradition, and civic responsibility could coexist with passionate, peaceful demonstration. Tourists stopped to photograph the juxtaposition, fascinated by the scene and the story it represented. As the morning continued, more supporters arrived, bringing with them additional banners and flags. The streets filled with a kaleidoscope of colors, voices, and signs, each adding to the collective energy. Even as the crowd swelled, there was an unmistakable sense of purpose. Everyone was there to participate in a peaceful expression of their beliefs, to show solidarity, and to make their presence known respectfully. The blend of ceremony, history, and activism created a scene that was visually captivating, emotionally engaging, and intellectually thought-provoking. By late morning, the energy of the crowd had reached a crescendo. The chants and songs became louder, more synchronized, echoing through the streets of central London. Observers could feel the collective heartbeat of the group, a rhythm that symbolized their unity, commitment, and hope. The royal guards, steady and unwavering, continued their duties, embodying centuries of tradition and discipline. The horses, alert but calm, added an elegant, powerful presence that balanced the dynamic energy of the gathering. In those hours before any dramatic events or further developments, the scene outside Horse Guards Parade was already compelling. It was a moment of history in motion, a peaceful, organized crowd expressing their beliefs, juxtaposed against centuries of ceremonial tradition. For everyone present, from tourists to local observers to the participants themselves, the morning had become unforgettable. It was a vivid reminder of the power of community, the importance of civic engagement, and the possibility of peaceful expression even in the midst of a bustling city. By the time mid-morning approached, it was clear that this gathering would be remembered. The energy was vibrant but controlled, passionate but respectful. The royal guards continued their ceremonial roles, maintaining dignity and composure, while the protesters held their ground with purpose and clarity. Children watched in wonder, journalists documented every moment, and passers-by paused to observe the unique scene. The streets of London had transformed into a living example of how history, civic responsibility, and personal conviction could intersect in a meaningful, respectful, and inspiring way. As the morning grew brighter, the atmosphere outside Horse Guards Parade became more charged. The crowd of supporters had grown even larger, now filling much of the street with a sea of flags, banners, and determined faces. Each person seemed to have a purpose, a silent understanding that their presence mattered and that together their voices could be heard. The chants, rhythmic and insistent, echoed through the streets and bounced off the surrounding buildings, carrying a message of peace, awareness, and solidarity. Even passers-by who had not intended to stop found themselves pausing, curious, and intrigued by the growing energy around them. The royal guards on the parade grounds remained statuesque, their red uniforms and tall bearskin hats a striking contrast to the colorful, moving crowd. Mounted guards sat tall on their elegant horses, eyes scanning the surroundings, ears flicking to catch any unusual sounds. Their discipline was remarkable, the result of years of training designed to maintain composure no matter the distractions. The horses, powerful and alert, shifted slightly in response to the crowd's energy, but they remained under control, guided by the calm commands of their riders. The contrast between the calm, silent guards and the vibrant, vocal crowd created a scene that was both visually striking and emotionally powerful. The crowd's energy continued to grow. Volunteers and organizers worked quietly but efficiently, guiding participants, handing out water, and ensuring that everyone stayed safe. Small groups formed to discuss their messages and strategies, while others simply joined in the chants, their voices blending together in a rhythm that seemed almost like a heartbeat for the streets of London. People of all ages were present: young students, older citizens, families with children, and visitors from other countries. The diversity of the crowd made the gathering feel even more meaningful, a reminder that shared causes could unite people across differences. Some protesters moved closer to the barriers separating the streets from the parade grounds. They stood there, banners raised, voices strong, careful not to step beyond the line. Leaders in the group reminded participants to stay calm and respectful, emphasizing that their goal was visibility and awareness, not disruption or harm. The discipline within the crowd mirrored that of the royal guards, though in a very different way. Both groups maintained order, one through centuries-old training, the other through collective agreement and shared purpose. This balance gave the gathering a unique and almost surreal quality, a meeting of tradition and civic expression in the heart of London. Tourists and locals watched closely. Some were fascinated by the precision of the guards, standing perfectly still, their faces unreadable as they observed the growing crowd. Others were drawn to the protesters, captivated by the passion and energy of the chants and the colorful banners. Children whispered to their parents, pointing out the horses or repeating phrases they had overheard from the chants. Parents explained what was happening in simple terms, turning the moment into an impromptu lesson about civic engagement, history, and the power of peaceful expression. Cameras clicked and phones recorded, capturing the scene in all its vibrancy, preserving the memory of a morning unlike any ordinary day in London. The energy of the crowd reached a tipping point as more people joined. The rhythmic chanting became louder, more insistent, almost like a song of unity that resonated across the streets. People waved banners and flags higher, making sure they were visible from every corner. Volunteers reminded everyone to stay on the street, not to cross barriers, and to avoid blocking pedestrians or vehicles. Their careful guidance ensured that the growing excitement did not turn into confusion or disorder. Even as the crowd pressed forward, there was a sense of calm determination, a shared understanding that their message could be powerful without needing to break rules or disrupt the ceremonial grounds. Journalists and photographers moved closer, eager to capture the moment. Interviews were conducted politely, with participants explaining their reasons for being there and the goals of their gathering. Social media posts and live streams began to spread the story beyond the streets of London, showing people around the world that the crowd's energy and message were being shared respectfully and effectively. The combination of traditional news coverage and digital media amplified the gathering, making the voices of the participants reach audiences far beyond the immediate location. Even with the growing excitement, the royal guards continued their duties with unwavering focus. Mounted guards adjusted their horses carefully, maintaining calm control over the animals. Their presence added a sense of stability to the scene, a reminder of history, tradition, and discipline amid the passionate energy of the gathering. The horses, alert but steady, occasionally shifted their hooves or flicked their ears, reacting subtly to the sounds and movement around them. To anyone watching, the scene was a striking contrast. The steady, disciplined guards and their powerful horses against the vibrant, dynamic, and vocal crowd. As the crowd pressed closer to the barriers, a sense of anticipation built. People exchanged looks of determination and hope, their faces reflecting the excitement and importance they felt. Volunteers reminded the crowd to stay safe and respectful, emphasizing that their purpose was to be seen and heard without causing harm. Leaders in the group spoke quietly but firmly, guiding participants to remain focused on their message. The energy of the crowd, though growing, was channeled in a positive and organized way, demonstrating that large gatherings could be both passionate and disciplined. Children in the crowd were wide-eyed with curiosity. They pointed at the royal guards and horses, whispering questions to their parents about why the guards did not move or speak. Parents answered carefully, explaining the importance of the ceremonial role and the history behind the parade grounds. For the children, the moment was both educational and exciting, a first-hand lesson in civic participation and public demonstration. Families took photos together, capturing memories of a morning that combined history, tradition, and a living example of peaceful advocacy. The chants and songs of the crowd became more synchronized, creating a sense of unity and purpose that could be felt by everyone nearby. People moved together in a rhythm, their voices rising and falling in a pattern that carried over the streets. The banners, held high and bright in color, seemed to float above the crowd, visible from a distance and sending a clear message of peace and awareness. The presence of the crowd was both respectful and assertive, showing that determination and civility could exist together in a powerful display. Police officers maintained their careful observation. Their role was to ensure safety, guide the crowd if necessary, and prevent any unintended accidents. They communicated quietly with each other, coordinating positions and monitoring movements. The balance between public expression and safety was handled with professionalism, allowing the gathering to continue peacefully. Officers occasionally interacted with participants, offering guidance or answering questions, further reinforcing the sense of order and calm amid the growing energy of the crowd. The royal guards, meanwhile, continued to maintain perfect composure. Their red coats and tall bearskin hats stood out against the bustling, colorful crowd. Mounted guards gently guided their horses, ensuring that each step remained precise and controlled. The contrast between the silent, disciplined guards and the passionate, vocal crowd created a scene that was visually striking and emotionally compelling. Tourists and locals alike paused to observe, taking photographs and recording videos, capturing the unusual and memorable scene for future reflection. As the late morning approached, the crowd's energy seemed to reach a new level. People pressed slightly closer to the barriers, still careful not to cross them. Leaders and volunteers reminded participants to stay calm and safe, ensuring that the demonstration remained peaceful and effective. The chants grew louder, echoing through the streets and surrounding buildings. The scene had transformed from a simple gathering into a powerful moment of civic engagement, a demonstration of unity, purpose, and peaceful expression. Children continued to watch with fascination, pointing out details of the royal guards and horses to each other. Parents explained the ceremonial significance and the importance of respectful protest. For those observing, the moment was a rare combination of history, tradition, and activism. Families, tourists, and local residents all shared in the experience, witnessing a scene that was visually impressive, emotionally engaging, and intellectually stimulating. Cameras clicked and phones recorded, preserving the memory of a morning that would be remembered for years to come. The atmosphere was tense but controlled. Everyone sensed that something significant was unfolding, though no one knew exactly what would happen next. The crowd's energy was at a peak, and the royal guards maintained their stoic composure, a reminder of centuries of discipline and ceremony. The horses shifted occasionally, alert but calm, responding only to the gentle guidance of their riders. The streets outside Horse Guards Parade had become a stage where history, civic responsibility, and passionate expression intersected, creating a scene unlike any ordinary day in London. By late morning, it was clear that the crowd had made its presence felt. The chants, banners, and collective energy had captured the attention of everyone nearby. The royal guards continued their ceremonial roles, demonstrating unwavering focus and composure. The children watched in wonder, journalists documented every moment, and the participants remained united in their peaceful demonstration. The morning had transformed into an unforgettable experience, a testament to the power of organized, respectful, and passionate public expression. Even as the crowd's energy reached its peak, there was no sense of disorder or chaos. Volunteers ensured that participants remained on the streets, leaders guided the chanting, and police officers maintained careful observation. The balance between expression, tradition, and safety was maintained perfectly. Tourists, locals, and participants all shared in the experience, witnessing a moment that combined history, civic engagement, and the human desire to be seen and heard. And so, the late morning continued with anticipation, energy, and purpose. The royal guards stood firm, horses alert and calm, while the crowd expressed itself with determination and unity. The stage was set for the next part of the story, a moment that would further test the balance between discipline, tradition, and public expression. The morning had already become unforgettable, leaving everyone present with a vivid memory of a peaceful, passionate, and remarkable gathering in the heart of London. As the day progressed, the energy outside Horse Guards Parade had reached a level that was both exciting and intense. The crowd had grown even larger, filling the streets with colorful flags, banners, and determined faces. The rhythmic chanting had become louder, a steady wave of sound that carried across the historic buildings. People moved together in small groups, their voices rising and falling in unison, creating a sense of unity that could be felt by everyone nearby. It was clear that this was more than just a simple gathering. It was a collective expression of hope, passion, and purpose. Volunteers and organizers worked tirelessly to maintain order within the crowd. They moved through the throngs of people, guiding participants to safe areas, handing out water, and encouraging everyone to remain calm and respectful. Small groups discussed how to make their message clear and visible without stepping over barriers or causing disruptions. The attention to detail and the sense of discipline within the crowd were remarkable. Each person seemed aware that their behavior reflected not just their own values, but the values of the entire group. The atmosphere was charged, but it remained peaceful and organized. Tourists and locals watched in awe as the scene unfolded. Cameras clicked and phones recorded, capturing every moment of the gathering. Children pointed excitedly at the colorful banners and the majestic royal guards, asking questions about the history of the parade grounds and the duties of the guards. Parents answered carefully, using the opportunity to teach lessons about civic engagement, history, and the importance of peaceful expression. The crowd's energy was contagious, and even bystanders who had not planned to stop found themselves drawn into the moment, moved by the unity and determination of the participants. The royal guards, meanwhile, remained statuesque and disciplined. Their red uniforms and tall bearskin hats stood out against the dynamic crowd. Mounted guards adjusted their horses carefully, maintaining complete control over their powerful animals. The horses shifted occasionally, ears flicking and hooves moving slightly, but they remained calm under the guidance of their riders. The contrast between the immovable, disciplined guards and the lively, vocal crowd was striking, creating a scene that was both visually captivating and emotionally compelling. Every movement, every gesture of the guards and their horses reinforced a sense of history and tradition that had endured for centuries. As the morning turned toward afternoon, the crowd pressed slightly closer to the barriers. The organizers reminded participants to maintain a respectful distance, emphasizing that their purpose was to make their voices heard, not to cross the ceremonial grounds. The protesters raised their banners higher, ensuring that their message was visible to everyone around them, including the royal guards, tourists, and local observers. The chants became more synchronized, almost musical, as if the collective energy of the crowd was forming a living rhythm that echoed through the streets of London. Children continued to watch with wide-eyed fascination. They whispered questions to their parents, pointing out the horses and the guards' disciplined posture. Parents explained that the royal guards had a ceremonial role that required them to remain calm and still, no matter what was happening around them. For the children, the morning had become an unforgettable lesson in history, tradition, and civic participation. Families took photographs together, capturing the vibrant colors of the banners, the disciplined presence of the guards, and the lively energy of the crowd. The scene was a combination of education, excitement, and real-life experience. Journalists and photographers moved through the crowd, capturing interviews and recording footage of the event. Participants spoke passionately but respectfully about the reasons they were gathered, sharing personal stories and perspectives. Social media posts and live streams extended the reach of the demonstration far beyond the streets of London, allowing people around the world to witness the moment. The crowd remained cooperative and organized, understanding that their message could be amplified by maintaining order and respect for the historic site. Even as the energy of the crowd grew, the royal guards maintained their composure. Their disciplined presence provided a sense of stability and order, balancing the vibrant activity around them. Mounted guards guided their horses with precision, ensuring that every step remained controlled. The powerful presence of the horses added a sense of majesty and elegance to the scene, reinforcing the ceremonial significance of the parade grounds. Observers could see the striking contrast between tradition and modern expression, between the calm, unchanging guards and the lively, expressive crowd. The organizers reminded everyone that safety was their top priority. Volunteers moved through the crowd, ensuring that people remained on the streets, avoided blocking pedestrians or vehicles, and stayed hydrated. Leaders encouraged participants to maintain the peaceful nature of the gathering, explaining that the effectiveness of their demonstration depended on respect, discipline, and visibility. Even as excitement grew, the crowd responded with cooperation and attentiveness, demonstrating a remarkable sense of self-regulation and awareness. As afternoon approached, the atmosphere became more intense. The rhythmic chants grew louder, and the banners were waved with greater enthusiasm. People spoke to each other, sharing stories of why they were there and expressing hope that their message would be heard. The energy of the crowd was contagious, spreading to bystanders and onlookers, creating a sense of shared purpose and collective action. Children continued to watch in wonder, pointing out details of the royal guards, the horses, and the banners, while parents explained the significance of the parade grounds and the importance of respectful civic engagement. Police officers maintained a quiet but vigilant presence. Their role was to ensure that the gathering remained safe and orderly. They communicated with each other using gestures and subtle movements, coordinating their positions to monitor the crowd effectively. Their calm demeanor reassured both participants and onlookers, allowing the gathering to continue peacefully. The careful balance between public expression and safety was maintained through a combination of clear communication, observation, and professionalism. As the day progressed, the crowd began to form a more cohesive presence. People moved in rhythm with the chants, creating a sense of unity that was visible to everyone around. The banners, raised high and bright in color, carried messages of peace, justice, and solidarity, visible to tourists, locals, and the royal guards themselves. The combination of movement, color, and sound created a visually and emotionally engaging scene, capturing the attention of everyone present. The gathering had become a living expression of civic engagement, demonstrating the power of peaceful collective action. Even with the crowd's growing size and energy, there was no sense of disorder. Volunteers ensured that participants remained on the streets, leaders guided the chanting, and police officers monitored the situation. The balance between expression, tradition, and safety was maintained. The royal guards continued their ceremonial duties, providing a sense of stability and discipline amid the vibrant activity of the crowd. Their presence reinforced the historic significance of the parade grounds, reminding everyone of the centuries of tradition that coexisted with the modern demonstration. The children in the crowd remained fascinated, whispering questions and pointing out details of the royal guards and the horses. Parents continued to provide explanations, turning the event into a real-life lesson about civic responsibility, history, and the importance of respectful advocacy. Families captured photographs and videos, preserving memories of a morning and afternoon that combined tradition, education, and active participation. The scene had transformed into a unique learning experience, blending observation with engagement in a way that would be remembered by all who witnessed it. As the afternoon wore on, the energy of the crowd seemed to reach a turning point. While everyone remained peaceful and respectful, there was a sense of anticipation in the air, as if something significant was about to occur. The chants became more powerful, and the banners were raised even higher. The collective energy of the participants seemed to grow stronger, creating a rhythm and momentum that could be felt physically. The crowd's presence had become impossible to ignore, a living reminder of the importance of being seen and heard. Tourists and locals observed the growing intensity, taking photographs, recording videos, and sharing the experience with friends and family. Children continued to marvel at the discipline of the royal guards and the majestic presence of the horses, while parents explained the ceremonial duties and the history of the parade grounds. Everyone present seemed to understand that they were witnessing a rare moment, a convergence of history, tradition, and civic expression that would be remembered for years to come. Journalists moved through the crowd, capturing footage and conducting interviews. Participants explained their reasons for gathering, sharing personal stories and perspectives with clarity and passion. Social media posts and live streams extended the reach of the gathering, allowing people across the world to witness the energy, organization, and purpose of the demonstration. Even as the intensity grew, the crowd remained focused on its goal: to be visible, to be heard, and to maintain a peaceful, respectful presence. The royal guards continued their roles with unwavering discipline. Mounted guards guided their horses with precision, ensuring that every movement remained controlled. The powerful presence of the horses added elegance and majesty to the scene, reinforcing the ceremonial significance of the parade grounds. The contrast between the calm, disciplined guards and the lively, vocal crowd remained striking, creating a scene that was visually captivating and emotionally engaging. The streets of London had become a stage where history, civic engagement, and public expression intersected in a remarkable way. As the afternoon continued, the crowd remained vibrant and energetic. Chants echoed through the streets, banners waved proudly, and participants engaged respectfully with bystanders and tourists. Volunteers maintained order, guiding people to safe areas and ensuring that the demonstration remained peaceful. Leaders reminded everyone of the importance of respect, discipline, and visibility. The balance between energy and order, expression and tradition was maintained perfectly. And so, as the day progressed, the scene outside Horse Guards Parade had transformed into something extraordinary. The crowd's energy and passion created a dynamic, living presence that contrasted with the calm, disciplined royal guards. Children watched and learned, families captured memories, journalists documented the events, and participants continued to chant and wave their banners with determination. The morning and afternoon had become unforgettable, a demonstration of peaceful advocacy, unity, and civic engagement that would be remembered long after the streets were empty. As the afternoon slowly gave way to early evening, the energy outside Horse Guards Parade began to change. The rhythmic chanting, once loud and pulsing like a heartbeat, started to soften, replaced by a quieter hum of conversation. People were still gathered, holding their banners high, but there was a sense of reflection in the air. The excitement of the morning and early afternoon had transformed into a more thoughtful atmosphere, as participants, tourists, and local observers alike absorbed the significance of what they had witnessed. It was clear that this gathering had left a lasting impression on everyone present. Organizers and volunteers moved through the crowd, gently reminding people to start making their way toward exits while continuing to maintain respect and order. They encouraged participants to take a moment to reflect on what they had achieved, the visibility of their message, the unity they had demonstrated, and the peaceful way in which they had conducted themselves. Families gathered their children, making sure everyone had water and snacks, and guiding them safely toward quieter areas. Volunteers ensured that banners and flags were handled carefully, symbolically marking the end of a long day of peaceful advocacy. The Royal Guards continued to stand tall and disciplined on the parade grounds. Their presence, once an unmovable backdrop to the lively energy of the crowd, now seemed to provide a sense of calm closure. The mounted guards guided their horses gently, adjusting their positions as the streets around them gradually cleared. The horses, ever alert but composed, seemed to share in the quiet reflection of the moment, their powerful and elegant presence a reminder of tradition, history, and the continuity of ceremonial duty. Tourists took their last photographs, capturing images of the serene horses and the disciplined guards against the softening light of late afternoon. Children, who had spent the entire day watching the events unfold with wide eyes, began to speak softly to their parents. They asked questions about the banners, the chants, and the people who had gathered to make their voices heard. Parents took the opportunity to explain the importance of civic engagement, of standing up for what one believes in peacefully, and of respecting public spaces while advocating for change. Many children repeated the slogans and phrases they had learned throughout the day, sometimes singing softly, their voices mingling with the remaining chants. The morning had turned into a full day of learning, reflection, and personal connection to the events. Journalists and photographers continued to document the scene, though the frenetic energy of the day had calmed. Reporters spoke to participants about their experiences, the sense of accomplishment they felt, and what they hoped would come from the visibility their gathering had achieved. Social media posts were shared widely, with participants reflecting on the day's events, expressing pride in the peaceful nature of the demonstration, and highlighting the importance of respectful advocacy. The coverage allowed the voices of the crowd to reach audiences far beyond the streets of London, spreading a message of unity, hope, and civic responsibility. As the sun began to dip lower in the sky, the crowd slowly started to disperse. People walked in small groups, chatting quietly about what they had seen and experienced. Some paused to take final photographs of the Royal Guards and their majestic horses, while others lingered to thank volunteers and organizers for their careful planning and guidance. The atmosphere was one of calm satisfaction, as participants recognized that their presence had mattered and that their message had been delivered with dignity and respect. Even as the streets gradually emptied, the impact of the gathering was clear. It had captured attention, sparked conversation, and provided a moment of shared purpose for everyone involved. The Royal Guards remained disciplined, even as the crowds thinned. Their steady presence was a reminder that tradition and ceremony continue regardless of the day's events. Mounted guards guided their horses with precision, ensuring that every movement was controlled and deliberate. The horses, alert but relaxed, reflected the balance between calm and energy that had defined the day. Observers noted the impressive coordination between the ceremonial duties and the public gathering, recognizing the harmony that had been achieved despite the crowds and noise. The scene highlighted the coexistence of history, civic engagement, and modern expression, a delicate balance maintained with care and respect. Families began to walk away slowly, children still pointing out details of the parade grounds, the banners, and the Royal Guards. Parents spoke about the lessons they had witnessed, the importance of peaceful advocacy, the value of unity, and the significance of respecting public spaces while expressing beliefs. Many families discussed what they had learned about the power of collective action and the ways in which voices could be heard without causing disruption. Children repeated phrases and chants softly, internalizing the experience as both a lesson and a memory they would carry with them. The streets of London gradually returned to their usual rhythm. Pedestrians walked past the parade grounds, vehicles resumed their steady flow, and the energy of the day slowly settled into a quiet hum. Yet the impact of the gathering lingered. Tourists shared their photos and stories with friends and family, reflecting on the unique combination of ceremony, history, and civic engagement they had witnessed. Local residents spoke about the importance of the peaceful nature of the demonstration and how it had drawn attention to a significant cause without creating chaos or disruption. The sense of accomplishment was shared by both participants and observers, a testament to the careful planning, respect, and unity that had defined the day. Volunteers and organizers gathered to debrief and reflect on the day's events. They spoke quietly among themselves, proud of how smoothly the gathering had been conducted. They discussed the success of maintaining order, ensuring safety, and providing participants with opportunities to express themselves. They noted the positive interactions with tourists and locals, the respectful behavior of the crowd, and the enduring presence of the royal guards as a symbol of history and tradition. There was a shared sense of achievement, an understanding that peaceful advocacy could be effective when combined with careful organization and mutual respect. Even the remaining participants took a moment to pause and reflect. They looked at the parade grounds, the disciplined guards, and the majestic horses, recognizing the significance of the space they had gathered around. The banners were carefully folded or carried away. The final chants faded into quiet discussion, and the collective energy of the day transitioned into a sense of accomplishment and calm. Participants spoke of the importance of unity, hope, and the power of peaceful expression, understanding that their presence had made a difference even in small ways. The memory of the day would remain with them, a reminder of the importance of standing together for shared values. As the evening approached, the parade grounds stood quiet once again. The royal guards remained, their posture disciplined and dignified, a symbol of continuity and tradition. The horses grazed or shifted slightly, alert yet calm, reflecting the balance between strength and composure. The historic grounds, having witnessed centuries of ceremonies and gatherings, had now seen another moment. A peaceful, respectful demonstration that had captured attention, inspired conversation, and highlighted the power of unity. For everyone present, from participants to tourists to local residents, the day had become an unforgettable experience. The children, now tired but excited, spoke quietly about what they had seen and learned. Parents smiled, recognizing the value of the experience in teaching lessons about civic engagement, history, and respectful advocacy. Many families walked home together, sharing reflections on the day and expressing pride in the way the gathering had been conducted. The combination of excitement, education, and peaceful expression had created memories that would last far longer than the day itself. As night fell, the streets around Horse Guards Parade returned to their usual quiet rhythm. The energy of the day lingered in the minds of participants and observers alike, a reminder of the power of peaceful, organized public expression. Tourists reflected on the unique scene they had witnessed, families discussed the lessons they had learned, and participants carried a sense of pride in what they had achieved. The royal guards, still standing tall, symbolized the enduring presence of tradition and the balance between history and modern civic engagement. The gathering had achieved more than visibility. It had demonstrated how people could come together peacefully, share a common purpose, and make their voices heard respectfully. It had shown that energy, passion, and unity could coexist with order, discipline, and tradition. The participants left with a sense of accomplishment. The tourists carried memories of a remarkable day, and the local community had witnessed a living example of civic engagement and peaceful advocacy. The impact of the event would be felt long after the streets had emptied and the banners had been put away. In the end, the day outside Horse Guards Parade became a story of harmony, respect, and shared purpose. The crowd, the royal guards, the majestic horses, and the historic grounds all played a role in creating a memorable moment. The children had learned lessons about history, civic responsibility, and peaceful advocacy. Families had shared meaningful experiences together. Participants had expressed their beliefs with dignity and unity, and the royal guards had maintained their centuries-old discipline, providing a constant reminder of tradition and ceremony. The day had come full circle, leaving a lasting impression on everyone who had witnessed it. As the final participants left, the sun set softly over the parade grounds. The streets were quieter, but the memories, lessons, and stories from the day remained alive in the minds of everyone who had been there. The peaceful, respectful gathering had succeeded in making its message visible, inspiring reflection, and demonstrating the power of unity, discipline, and civility. It was a day that would be remembered not for chaos or conflict, but for the beauty of collective purpose, the strength of peaceful advocacy, and the harmony between tradition and modern expression.